Hey guys, and welcome to AMC Mailbag, the all-mailbag show here on AMC Movie News, where all we do is take your questions. I'm Ashley Mova, and if you've got a question that you want answered on air, you can send it over anytime to amcmovietalk@gmail.com. You could get it answered on Mailbag or Movie Talk, and sitting with me to answer some of those questions is the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, John Campea. John, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Very excited. Me, Dennis Schnepp, and Amy Rose, we are heading to Atlanta. We're heading to Atlanta. We're going to be doing some stuff with an AMC conference, but we're also going to be doing a live taping at an AMC theater of AMC Movie Talk.
That's and we sold out
the theater in one day.
Impressive.
In one day, the theater sold out. So we're so excited to come out to Atlanta and meet you guys.
Take pictures. Take a lot of pictures.
Lots of pictures will be taken.
Ahshare Thompson writes, "Hey AMC, love the show. My question is about Will Smith as Deadshot in Suicide Squad. If he only does movies in which he is the star, what does that mean for the rest of the DC universe? What about movies like Batman or Superman where he is nowhere close to being the star? In the comic books, Deadshot is at least a B-list villain. Does this mean that Will Smith is not going to play in any of the mainstream DC movies? Will he just appear in Suicide Squad or maybe a standalone film?"
Really depends. You know, on yesterday's show, we were talking about Will Smith and the fact that his presence, that he's in Focus, the movie Focus, makes me look forward to it. Now, you can't ignore, though, there are a lot of stories that go around about Will Smith and dealing with him off camera. One of the most notorious stories comes from Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino tells a story about Django Unchained and how he was supposed to have Will Smith. Will Smith was supposed to be Django in that film. Yeah, it was supposed to be Will Smith. And they were going back and forth, and he sent him the script. And the long and the short of it is Quentin Tarantino tells a story. Will Smith didn't like it that the Christoph Waltz character gets so many cool lines. And that Christoph Waltz's character is also the hero. That they're both the hero, right? And Will Smith, you know, you can look it up yourself, but basically Quentin Tarantino tells a story about how Will Smith basically said, yeah, I think I should be the hero. And I, like, alone should be the hero. And, you know, Christoph Waltz ends up killing off one of the key bad guys. And it's like, and Will Smith is like, I should have killed that bad guy in the script and all that kind of stuff, right? So those types of stories don't help, you know, the perception of Will Smith off camera. So, you know, it's like, I should have killed Leonardo DiCaprio. Well, you don't. It works better for the story if this character kills him. So that doesn't help. That doesn't mean Will Smith has always been like that. And it doesn't mean he's been like that ever since. Like, who knows? Maybe after the huge success of Django Unchained and he realized, look what I missed out on, maybe he changed his attitude. But I think that's where this question is coming from, is stories like that. It's like, Will Smith don't want to be in it unless he's the guy. So what do you do then with a character like this in the DC Cinematic Universe if you want to bring that character, Deadshot, into a Batman movie? Guess what? Deadshot ain't going to be the guy in a Batman movie or in a Superman movie or whatever, nor should he be. So the question is, does that mean he won't be in there? Well, if his attitude is the same as it was with Quentin Tarantino and Django Unchained, then no. Then he's going to refuse to be in those types of movies. But once again, that's a big if. Just because he felt that way about that one movie does not necessarily mean that's the way he feels about all movies. Or if he did feel that way for a long time, maybe he's realizing now, damn, people aren't going to go see my movies the way they used to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Maybe I need a little bit of damn, I mean, look, Django Unchained got all that Oscar attention, all that Oscar glory. Maybe if I had done that movie, it would, you know, maybe he's adjusted his thinking. We don't know. And we won't know for a few years. Let's see what else he appears in. Let's see what else he does. I'm going to tell you this, though. If Suicide Squad comes out and it's all Deadshot all the time, then you'll know that was part of it. And I'm going to say this too. If Suicide Squad comes out and it's like all focused on Will Smith's character, then I'll tell you why Tom Hardy left. And I'll tell you why Jake Gyllenhaal refused to go in the movie. And I'll tell you why. That's why. We don't know that yet. Suicide Squad may come out. Might be a nice balanced ensemble piece, which, you know, like Guardians of the Galaxy was. That's what this should be. Nice and balanced ensemble piece. If it's all focused on Will Smith, then I'm going to be doing videos about, I guess we know why Tom Hardy left the movie. And just a thought.
The person who sent in this question mentioned a standalone film. Do you think that they would offer him one to kind of compensate? Like, maybe you'll take the backseat in this film, but later on we'll give you a standalone. I mean, with a lineup till 2020, it's like...
It's hard to imagine, right? Like, I think you just nailed it exactly. It's like, look, DC already has a quote-unquote roadmap that stretches for 5 years. Does the general public want a standalone Deadshot movie? I don't think they do. Now, that could change after we see Suicide Squad. If Suicide Squad is awesome and Deadshot is a great character in the movie and Will Smith does a great job with it, hey, maybe there'll be demand for it. And we talked about in Movie Talk last week that, hey, just because DC has this roadmap, there's nothing that says, there's no blood pact that says they have to stick to that roadmap. If they think they've got something hot on their hands with a potential, Will Smith standalone film, they can go in that direction. If they realize, hey, nobody wants to see a Cyborg movie, no one wants to see a standalone Green Lantern movie, if they feel, I'm not saying that's the case, I'm just throwing that out as an example, then they can change their minds. So, hey, anything's possible.
We'll see. Michael C. writes, it's always great to hear from the best damn movie news on the planet. Keep up the awesome work. On last Wednesday's episode of Movie Talk, you answered a Twitter question regarding whether George Lucas would have sold Lucasfilm and the rights of Star Wars to Disney had the prequel trilogy been as great as the original trilogy. And I gotta say, John Schnepp and Mark Ellis's answers got me wondering whether we will one day see a biopic about George Lucas, maybe done in the style of The Social Network.
There is a book right now and out that's called How Star Wars Conquered the Universe. It just came out not too long ago, like within the past, I think 4 months, I think.
Did you write that?
You'd think. Yes, I wrote it. It's written by a guy by the name of Chris Taylor, who I think works at Mashable. I think he's one of the writers at Mashable. And it is awesome. So good. It's a book that talks about and goes into the history, not just of where did Star Wars come from? How did George Lucas, it goes into Lucas's history. It goes into the influence and impact of fandom of Star Wars. It goes into the history of the 501st, that crew of people who make their own stormtrooper armor and go to big events, and there's like tens of thousands of them. It goes into the history of all these things. It is such a great complete picture of how Star Wars came to be, how George Lucas turned into the guy that he is, and how it just became this worldwide phenomenon and conquered the universe. It's incredible, and I'm only a third of the way into it. I'm just a third of the way into it. It's crazy good. The stories alone between Lucas and how him and Francis Ford Coppola began working together, the founding of American Zoetrope, and how like THX came about, and all just that alone is insanely good. The car accident that changed George Lucas's life. I mean, the story of George Lucas himself is so damn cinematic. It's incredible. You think Facebook's a big deal? Pshaw. Star Wars, baby. And the story behind it and all that kind of stuff and all the drama and all the everything that went into it, I am finding fascinating. Now, take it with a grain of salt that I'm a pre-existing Star Wars fan. So does that, influence how much I love this book? It might. It absolutely might. All I can tell you is that I'm going through this book and I find it fascinating. I'm probably going to be done it in the next week or two. But it's amazing. I highly recommend, if you're interested, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, this is a book to read. And go pick it up and check it out. And if you do, then you will understand why I say, yes, I would love to see a movie made out of this in the Social Network style. I think it would be absolutely incredible.
Justin Timberlake as George Lucas.
Justin Timberlake as George Lucas.
Jordan writes, hey AMC, sports are a big genre in movies. There have been many great ones for American football, baseball, basketball, etc., but there haven't been a lot of movies about football, soccer. Why do you think this is? It is the most popular sport in the world, and I know there are plenty of stories out there that could be adapted beautifully into film. I think it's a missed opportunity. What do you all think?
There are some great soccer movies out there, whether you're talking about movies like Victory or Goal or Bend It Like Beckham.
Yeah.
My all-time favorite soccer movie, actually. I actually said something else was my all-time favorite soccer movie once, and then somebody reminded me of this one film, and it's like, oh, obviously. My all-time favorite soccer movie. Some people will argue it's not even really a soccer movie, but it's Shaolin Soccer. Shaolin Soccer is so damn good. So good. It's hilarious. And remember at the time, the visual effects were actually really kind of spectacular, especially with the soccer ball and everything. It's great. But I mean, there's, Green Street Hooligans, and others. There have been good soccer movies out there. Is there an opportunity being missed? No, there's not. Why? Because nobody in North America cares about soccer. And obviously that's a hyperbole. There are people who care about soccer. But in the top 4 most popular sports, it's number 7. I mean, it's not in there. And while it is absolutely the most popular sport in the world, it is not very popular here. And North America is where, the popularity for movies start. Do they get things going here and get big, and then they can make even bigger money overseas? But it feels like for the most part, not always. There are exceptions, absolutely, but it's got to start here. And there's just not an audience for soccer movies here. And it's unfortunate. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's completely indifferent. Soccer's not a popular thing here, and therefore you can't expect soccer-themed movies to be all that popular. That's not to say that there isn't an opportunity for a really great story that happens to revolve around soccer. Can't break out. It can. But if you're asking why aren't studios lining up to make these movies, that's probably why.
You mentioned Bend It Like Beckham, and Ryan Reese Myers was in it. And for a while, I felt like he was on such a roll. Where did he go? He fell off the face of the earth.
I have no idea, which kind of goes to prove your point.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no idea.
How do actors just on a roll one day, next day, you're out?
But that's the entertainment business, right? I mean, it's really special when you come across these people who endure for 5, 10, 15 years. And that's not one of them.
Sucks for him. Lauren writes, I love your show and watch it every day. My question is, what do you think of the recent trends we're seeing in film where it seems a movie is just there to set up subsequent sequels and a possible franchise? Both ASM 2 and Mockingjay Part 1 suffered because they felt like they were too focused on building for the next time. Why is it filmmakers can't just deliver a great story that in itself will want to make fans come back for more?
I think you're asking the wrong question, actually. Really, it's not that directors putting attention on setting up the next film. Mm-hmm. That's not the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is making a bad film. Mm-hmm. And when you make a bad film, problems really start to stand out. When you make great films, people overlook deficiencies and problems a little bit more. But when the film fails, we start to find all the problems with them. The problem with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not that it spent too much time setting up what they wanted to do next with the Sinister Six or what have you. The problem is they didn't make a good enough movie. Now, I enjoyed The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm one of the people who did.
As did I.
But I will tell you, it was a big step down from the first The Amazing Spider-Man movie, which I thought was awesome. And then you get somebody like John Schnepp, who actually hated The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So the problem with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not that they were trying to build up for the next one. The problem is they made not a great movie. And then all those other problems stood out. Look, Empire Strikes Back was about setting up Return of the Jedi, make no mistake, but they made a great movie while doing it. And so we don't talk about it was just setting up. The Lord of the Rings, the first of the Lord of the Rings films, clearly it ends with Sam and Frodo standing on the landscape and seeing Mordor off in the distance. Oh, great. Now this is the next step. End credits. Mm-hmm. What? It was about setting up the next one. But they made a great movie, so it becomes unnoticeable. When you don't make a great movie, the flaws become noticeable. So you talk about the last Hunger Games movie. I enjoyed the last Hunger Games. Actually, I enjoyed the last Hunger Games movie a lot, but it had problems for a lot of people. And because it had problems for a lot of people, they start to notice, well, it was all about because setting up for this. There were great movies out there that were all about setting up the next film, but we don't talk about it because they were great movies. So really that's the thing. It's not so much that the problem is directors spending time to set up the next film. The problem is directors spending time to set up the next film and not doing a real good job of it. That's really the issue.
Do you think there's any chance that Mockingjay Part 2 is going to suffer from that Part 1 kind of trying to force into the Part 2?
It could. Here's what I think the last Hunger Games film is in danger of, which is some people felt that the most recent Hunger Games film, part one, was too much setup. It's all just too much setup, right? What a film like that can suffer from. Let's take The Hobbit, the second Hobbit movie, right? Into the third Hobbit movie. The third Hobbit movie was all payoff. But because, for me personally, I did a video, you can find it on our YouTube channel, called The 5 Major Problems with The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. Even though I really liked the movie, I had 5 big problems with it. And one of those problems was, or 2 of the problems focused around this issue, that because there was no setup left. Yeah. So they have this, here's an example, they have this big, epic final battle between Thorin Oakenshield and Azog the Defiler, the big white orc, right? But I felt no emotional hook in that because it's been 2 years since I've seen these guys on screen together. I don't feel the angst. You know, the movie starts with Smaug destroying Lake Town and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's great. But all the setup was last year. I'm now separated from all that emotional setup. And so for me, it was just like turn on a video game. There's a dragon destroying a town. Without that emotional buildup, it can lack. And I think that's what the next Hunger, I'm not saying that's what's
so true. Now I'm worried.
Yes.
I'm worried.
See, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen in the final Hunger Games film, but I'd say if it's in danger of anything, it's in danger of all payoff without the setup, which becomes empty calories. It just becomes sugar in the mouth. It tastes pretty sweet, but it's just empty calories without that emotional setup. And that's what they're in danger of right now. We'll see how it pays off.
Scared. Jai Patel writes, with the Oscars coming up, I was wondering why when it comes to honorary Oscars, why only a handful have been given out posthumously in 80 plus years? There is a great specific reason, or has it just been something that has worked out that way? I asked this because I was wondering, what are the chances of Robin Williams getting awarded one for his career and contributions to the industry?
We were having this big discussion. How do we pronounce posthumously?
I was worried about
my natural thing is to say posthumously or whatever. If I say it wrong, just forgive me. There has actually only been one Academy Award, as far as I know, given out, one honorary Academy Award given out posthumously. And that was in 1973 to Edward G. Robinson. He was the only guy to ever get one. There have been 18 Oscars given out posthumously in total, including, I believe, most recently Heath Ledger for playing as well. Walt Disney actually got one in 1968 for a Winnie the Pooh movie short that he won, but he died before the Academy Award. So, not a lot have been given out. Could they give one out to Robin Williams? And why do they not usually give them out to people who've already passed away? Well, let's start with that one first. Why not give it out to people who passed away more? I think because, and I like this, you want to celebrate while they're still there, while they're still with us. I like the honorary awards being given to those who we can bring out and honor, and let them be there and be part. And it's more special for the audience as well when they're there and they're a part of that. Now, I'm not saying that we should exclude people who've passed away from receiving honorary Oscars, not at all. But that's one of the reasons why I think they do it and why I like they do it. And the fact that they've only done it once in history, as far as I know. Actually, fact checker Dennis, can you look that up? I believe Edward G. Robinson was the only guy to get an honorary Oscar after passing away. If you can look up and see if that's true or not, that would be great. And correct me if I'm wrong. But could Robin Williams get one? I think the likelihood is nil for that, for a couple of reasons. But not least of which is that he's got Oscars. I mean, it's not like Robin Williams had this incredibly awesome career and was never quite got over that hump of actually winning one of his own. He did. And if it wasn't for one of the great male performances of all time, with Michael Douglas in Wall Street, Greed is Good. If it wasn't for that performance that year, Robin Williams would have 2 Oscars on his mantle. And I think he was nominated 3 times for Acting Academy Awards. Anyway, so to me, I think just that alone means there's not really a need to give one to him. He got one for acting and he won one, and I think that settles it.
What about those montages honoring people's lives?
Well, yeah, actually, you know what? I've been saying for years, you got to get rid of montages out of the Oscars. Really? They just take up too much of the time, except the in memoriam montages. Those are the most special part of the Oscars. And I value them and I love them. And you will absolutely see Robin Williams in memoriam at the Oscars this year. And you're going to hear a big cheer and a big round of applause when that face comes up, rightfully so. Actually, this year's been a very sad year for some of the greats that we've lost, but Robin Williams will be one of the big ones.
There's been, I think, two.
There's
Douglas Fairbanks in 1939. The rest, there's a bunch of them, but they're all scientific and technical.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. There you go. So there was another one.
Aaron Tansman.
That's why we have fact checkers.
There it is. Hey, AMC movie talkers, love your show. Which comedy trio do you prefer? Hangover, Bradley Cooper, Ed Helms, Zach Galifianakis, or Horrible Bosses, Jason Bateman, Jason Sudeikis, Charlie Day?
Okay. I'm going to go on this as the question is worded. Sudeikis, Bateman, and Day. If I had to ask me which of the two groups gave the best individual movie, the first Hangover by a mile. But that was lightning in a bottle. I think that was lightning in a bottle. And I did not like the second Hangover at all. I liked the third Hangover. I did, but it's not in the same class as the first Hangover film at all. But that comedy trio of Bateman, Jason Sudeikis, Charlie, I like all three of them. And I can watch all three of them in a comedy any day of the week. Now, was Horrible Bosses 1 or 2 as good as The Hangover? No, they weren't. But I would be quicker to run out to see another movie made by Sudeikis, Day, and Bateman than I would be to run out and see another movie that wasn't called The Hangover with Galifianakis, Bradley Cooper, and who was the other one? Ed Helms. As a matter of fact, I don't even like Ed Helms that much. I thought he was the one dead weight I felt on The Office. And I've just never, he had that one, he did a little indie comedy with John C. Reilly not too long ago, which was Cedar Rapids. Thank you. That was the name of it. Thank you, Jonathan. Was Cedar Rapids. And I like Cedar Rapids, but I think it might be the only thing I've liked Ed Helms in.
He provided contrast.
He certainly, good stuff. Let's contrast it with some bad. No, he did. And I liked him in The Hangover. I thought he was really good in The Hangover. But yeah, if I had to pick one trio just as a go-to thing, I would go with the Jasons.
Do you ever think The Hangover is going to make a comeback? I just love the first so much. I have to feel like there's hope.
I thought Hangover 3 at least got them back on the right track. But here's the thing. Ed Helms isn't the star that they all thought he might break out to be. Number 2, Bradley Cooper has now been nominated for a Lead Actor Academy Award 3 years in a row. He is in high demand. Yeah. And look, at the risk of sounding hipster, I was into Bradley Cooper before being into Bradley Cooper was cool. I was a big fan of Bradley Cooper back in the days when he was on Alias. Ooh. I was always like, she should be getting together with Bradley Cooper's character, not the Michael Vartan character. I was the only guy. I loved Bradley Cooper on Alias. I was a big fan of his on that. So, I mean, you put all that together, and the fact that the reception for The Hangovers has not been well. They did The Hangover 3 partly because they felt like they had to make up for The Hangover 2, and they didn't really deliver all that much. I think they're over it. I really do. I think they're over it. I would watch another one. I would too. But I think they're over it.
Kobe writes, oh, hey, Kobe. Hey, AMC, I love the show, and you all do a great job. Lots of fun to watch. Okay, so let me cut to the chase. My question is about Accidental Love. The movie is slated for release on February 10th, 2015. I've looked into it some, and from what I understand, it is directed by David O. Russell, one of my personal favorites, and yet it hasn't been spoken about at all. I heard that Russell dropped it at first, but now it looks like he's back, but is directing under a different name. I'm really confused, and I would like to know what you think, and if you can explain it to me. Thanks as always.
Yeah, Accidental Love. First of all, what a pile of horse poop this movie looks like.
Oh, did you see it? Or?
Am I being? No, I'm just saying looks like. Okay. Am I being too harsh? Maybe, but this movie looks terrible. There is you could make a movie about the road Accidental Love. Because by the way, the original name of the movie was actually called Nailed. Nailed because I was going to say Jessica Alba. Jessica Biel gets a nail pounded into her head. Okay. And this movie just looks awful. So David O. Russell was directing it. This was way back. We're going back like, I think 5-6 years. This is before The Fighter. This is before David O. Russell was the hot name, although he was already a very respected director at the time. So they make it, the movie runs into money problems. or production problems or other types of problems that who knows. And it gets kind of side railed. David O. Russell leaves the movie. I think back in 2011, he leaves the movie. He's gone, right? I think they just kind of took, I'm just giving you what I think, okay? I think they just kind of took the footage, edited it together the best they could, and went,
Oh, man.
hey, Jake Gyllenhaal got some Oscar buzz, even though he's not nominated, got some Oscar buzzes. Let's put this out now. And they're releasing it, and it's under a name that the guy directing it is Stephen Green. But I don't think Stephen Green exists.
Ooh.
I think, on yesterday's mailbag, you were asking me, the question came up about a guy that doesn't really exist. It's just a made-up name put in place.
Yeah.
You gave it a name. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But that is, I think, one of these situations. I don't think there is a Stephen Green. I don't know that for a fact.
Oh, it's so
but I think this is just a made-up name because the studio just took it because they took David O. Russell's name off, or David O. Russell asked for his name to be taken off of it. From the look of the trailer, it was probably a smart move, David. And they've just put in this name. I think this is now just the studio kind of plopped it together and they're putting it out because maybe they thought they could make some money. But this movie looks like a train wreck.
Yeah.
A really, really special kind of train wreck. So
If he didn't give them permission, though, is that illegal to replace his name?
no, it's not. I mean, there are formulas and protocols you go through with the Directors Guild and all this kind of stuff. But there are situations where, hey, if the director just walked from the movie, you can take his name off. Or if you and if the director asks, hey, can you take my name off? I want nothing more to do with this movie. Hey, that's happened. That has happened. Then they can go, sure, we'll take your name off. But there's a lot of different ways this can come about.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Preston Weeks writes, hi guys. I don't know about you, but I can't stand that credits are included in films' runtimes. I understand why they do it because it technically is a part of the film. But if you're deciding what to watch in a certain allotted amount of time, it makes it difficult because each film's credits run a different length of time. What is your opinion of this? And do you think the standard could ever be changed to have credits not included in official runtimes?
I remember when I first found out a few years ago, well, a bunch of years ago, that credits were actually considered part of the runtime. And I remember thinking that's weird, but it does make sense. You're right. You said it in the email yourself. It is a part of the movie. It's part of the credits are part of the film. Your whole point though about, the runtime partially decides what movie I'm going to see. The credits are an insignificant amount of time. Like, oh yeah, some credits will be 2 minutes, some might be 5 or 6. So it's the difference between 102, minute runtime and 105 minute runtime. Really? That difference is going to determine for you whether you go see movie A or movie B. It's such an inconsequential period of time that I think it's insignificant. And so do I see a time coming when I think they're going to remove the credits as a part of the runtime of the film? No. And honestly, even though I found it weird for a very long time, I'm now of the belief that nor should they. The credits are a part of the movie. They are technically, even though everybody gets up and leaves during them, they're technically part of the movie-going experience. And now, especially with Marvel doing all these, not just end credit scenes, now they're doing mid-end credit scenes. They're doing start of the end credit scene with a mid-end credit scene with a final end credit scene. I mean, they really are becoming a part of the movie. So I don't see that changing anytime.
So with the end credit scenes, are those also included in the
time? In the runtime. They're absolutely included in the runtime.
I mean, those could be like, I don't know, 5 minutes to...
Sure, they aren't.
Yeah.
But they could be.
Yeah.
But even if they are, they start putting in like a 7-minute long end credit scene. It's part of the movie. So it gets added and included as part of the runtime. I would be more upset as an audience goer if I was really looking at the runtime. I'd be more upset if it wasn't included in the runtime because if it's like a Marvel movie and they have 2 post-credit scenes and say, hey, wait a minute, this thing said it was 98 minutes long. That was 106.
Yeah.
Whatever. That was longer than they said. Well, now that you'd run into that problem. So I think they should include it in the runtime.
Definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, last question for the day, guys. Thank you so much again for watching us. And just a reminder, if you want to see some great films, go ahead and head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all of your theaters, showtimes, and ticket information. If you want a podcast version of this episode, check out the description box below for the link and click the subscribe button. Thanks to the guys in the room, and thanks to John. John, where can people find you online?
You guys can find me online on Facebook and on Twitter just at John Campia. And this Tuesday night, if you're one of the lucky people who got tickets in Atlanta at the AMC, there. Really looking forward to it.
Woo, that's exciting. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ashley Mova. And until next time, guys, bye.